This is a show about facing fear, unlocking courage, and taking action.
Courage isn't necessarily a daunting thing.
It's going to give you more purpose. It's going to give you more drive.
It feels like making a courageous decision is going to get you closer to who you aspire to be.
It's knowledge plus faith plus action equals courage.
You know, if you are curious and you get into an amazing organization some way, somehow, even if it's not exactly in the wheelhouse of what, you want to do, you'll find your way. Like the cream rises to the top.
I'm so excited for this one, and there's a few reasons why. I mean, the first one is, and I don't know if he would actually admit this. Let's start with Billy Collins, shall we? My business partner. I would say Billy would put you in the mentor category. Has he actually ever declared you a mentor?
I don't know if he would admit that. Like, I think there might be an ego thing in there, but I think I would qualify if you made him list out some folks. Hopefully, I'd make the list.
Oh, I would say so. Yeah, and just to be clear, there will be moments during the podcast. We're not going to call Billy in, but I was
Right.
like, give me one professional zinger to ask Mike, and give me one personal question to ask Mike. So there'll be a couple,
All right.
and you can try to guess which ones were the
Sure.
Billy Collins and which ones weren't. All right. First of all, it's great to see you. Congratulations on everything. You're kind of, I mean, you're almost like a year, 15 months in on the new gig, correct?
Yep, for sure.
So for you, how has the shift been? I mean, look, 25 years, like as an experienced high performance executive, you've done this before, building multinational brands, billion-dollar brands. And now you shift into a new business. It's not really a startup, but do you still treat it like
Yeah.
a startup?
Yeah. I mean, it's the transition's been, has been what, I'm really thankful for all the people I get a chance to work with. It's been great. It's been what I was expecting. I mean, I was, over 25 years in an amazing company. And, over the last few, I kind of decided what I really wanted to spend my energy and time doing, and was really looking for that. And had a pretty high bar to leave such a great company. And then finally, when the right opportunity came along, that kind of met all the criteria. Luckily, sometimes you get a little nervous that you're going to open up the hood and find something else. And luckily, everybody was exactly who they said they were, and the business was what I was expecting. And it's emotional to leave so many friends and colleagues that you spent 20 some years working with, and not seeing or connecting with as much every day. But some of them are lifelong friends that I continue to talk with all the time. So I think the new team has been awesome to work with, and we've been off and running. I mean, it's definitely, when you think about a startup, it's it's not a startup in that, like, it's starting from zero, but there's certain processes and the structure and stuff like that you're starting with a white sheet of paper, and you say, all right, we're gonna have to build this from nothing. And I think they it's on its way, so we're pretty excited.
Now, when you say there's a criteria, like,
Yeah.
is it a literal written, you're
Yes.
clicking box? Tell me more.
Yeah, it's actually one of the things that I got from another mentor of mine that I give to a lot of people I talk to, which is, have your list, kind of your make me move list. Of like, here's what would make, that I'm looking for, and actually write it down and work on it. Like, you might write it the first time, and then as you go and you meet people, you might refine it. And you never want to be running from something, you want to be running to something. And so I think, like, write down what you're running to. And I think at the time when I was starting to look, I had daughters in high school, and I wasn't going to be moving until they were out of high school. So that was important. I wanted to work in certain categories, a certain size of business, certain things relative to kind of ownership, and what the role would be itself. And so I worked on that and worked on it. And I think when I first met the team behind Raw Sugar, I remember coming out of the first meeting, because lots of times you have these calls from recruiters and other people, and after about 10 minutes you go, nope, we're we're 1 for 3 or something. You just, you don't want to waste people's time. And I think I came back from the first conversation, talked to my wife, and said, oh my gosh, we're 4 for 4. This, we're going to have more conversations, but so far we're heading down a good path. And yeah, and so because it takes, there's a lot of folks who it's hard to make that move away from, an organization going so long. So it was a helpful tool for me to be able to I checked all the boxes. Now it's time for me to, see if I'm really ready to do this.
I know you don't have to like unveil all four for four, but for someone that's listening, what did you look at, and is it a prioritized list?
It wasn't prioritized. I think they were all kind of equal in terms of what they need to do. Some of them were personal, like I wasn't moving until my, daughters were out of high school. There was things I started to really wanted to work on smaller businesses, and so where I can have a lot of ownership. So I was going to be a CEO. I mean, that was a piece of it. I wanted the business to be at least roughly $100 million or larger in terms of revenue, because I was not a startup guy from zero. Like I felt like I was more of a scale person. I could take something, I could scale it. I wanted to be in health and wellness and areas that I have a personal passion around. And then there's things around kind of the ownership and are there people I want to work with? Do I feel like I have a connection when I go and I meet with people? And so that, which is really important. I mean, you're going to be kind of thrown into the trenches with folks, and so you feel like you have similar values. So I think all of those kind of came about in kind of a pretty formal process where you go and say, hey, this is the criteria.
So it's funny when you look at your background and like even before work. And look, we're not going to talk too much about sports today because it'll be
Sure.
humiliating for our sports team. For
Right,
me,
yeah.
you're the Philly guy, so you're used to winning as a Washington sports
Well,
fan.
we're used to getting into the final thing and then losing right now, but yeah.
I'm actually Googling the word finals right now. I'm not familiar with this term. But if you go all the way back, like you started as like a pretty badass rower, right? I mean, all-American rower, and
Hmm.
I would love to know in your mind, what has rowing taught you about business? Like if you take a look at your time back then, is there like a thread to how you go about your business or how you go about building teams that you learned from rowing?
Yeah. I mean, a lot. It was pretty foundational in terms of a change in kind of me as a person and everything. And I think one of them is discipline. I mean, and I think if you talk about a team, I'm a pretty disciplined person in terms of like structure is helpful. Sometimes it gets a bad name, but as you give teams structure of this is when meetings are going to happen, this is when delivery is going to happen. Actually, it creates a lot of space for people to be able to do other things because there's not a question of when things are due or how we're going to operate. And so coming in and providing structure, I think is pretty important. And rowing is a pretty structured sport. I mean, it's those folks that, are up at 5 a.m. 6 days a week while you're in college and everybody else is walking back from the bars and we're heading out to work out. And so like it's a pretty structured sport. And I think the other thing that happens is you start realizing that, you work towards something over time, and you continuously get better. Like it doesn't happen immediately, and rowing's not one where it doesn't take a lot of honestly, it doesn't take a lot of skill like golf or stuff like that. I mean, you put the oar in, you pull really hard, you take it out, you put it back in again. I mean, you can learn pretty quickly, but you get stronger and stronger and stronger, and you start realizing over years that continuous work ends up paying off over those years. Greg LeMond, the Tour de France and the cyclist, had this one quote one time after he won his like third or fourth, and they asked him like, "Does it ever get easier?" He said, "No, I just go faster." And so there's a part where the work kind of keeps going in. And I think when you go and you're building a team or you're building a business, you have to realize that it's going to take many times years to kind of get where you need to go to, and that kind of showing up every day, putting the work in, showing up every day, putting the work in is part of what you learn through that process. And I think the last one is the team orientation. I mean, there's no individual. If you can't take 8 people are in a boat and say this one guy was the reason that they won. I mean, and so there's an element of selflessness, I think, in working in teams that happens there.
This reminds me of so pre-pandemic, I went and saw Reed Hastings from Netflix speak,
Mhm.
and one of the questions that somebody asked him is Netflix a sports team or
Mhm.
is it a family? And
Right.
he sort of chuckled. He's
The
like, "Oh,
sports team.
yep." He was like, "We're a sports team. This
Yeah,
is not. This is performance. Not everybody's gonna play the same minutes.
sure.
What's asked of different players, But when I look at what you're building at Raw Sugar, I mean, there's a lot of family going on here too. You just
Yeah,
had your huge barbecue in
yeah,
LA. There was a
yeah.
watermelon contest, and someone was very upset that there weren't pictures of the watermelon contest.
Yeah.
So is it
Yeah.
is it a family or is it a sports team?
Yeah, I mean, I think the people every day, I think we're competitive, we're out there against the mission. So I think day to day it's more of a sports team. I think when we have our family picnic and things like that, I think we have to recognize the way that a person is able to show up every day and contribute their best and be able to be, fully engaged relies on the people that are within their family as well. And so, like, the reason why we do this is a great opportunity for me to thank the partners and spouses and kids and friends and everybody who are in their lives, to thank them for what they do, because they actually make it possible that athlete, if you will, can show up and perform each day. We're supportive, we work with each other out of love, but there's a aspect of keeping up the pace to the pace that everybody's operating at, that is an expectation and is a requirement.
So I think we're gonna do a little dance here where let's talk about your last life and then we'll move into Raw
Sure.
Sugar just for a hot
Yeah.
second. So like
Right.
I mean like J&J or Kenview or whatever we're called now today, I mean, not a small organization, probably
Yeah.
would put themselves in the sports team arena.
Sure.
Uh, what did you learn from there? I mean, there's so much you've learned, but was like if you could like sort of distill it down to one or two huge principles that
Yeah.
you wanted to bring into this universe,
Yeah.
what would those one or two be?
Yeah. I mean, there's a part, even, children are going through college, and even as they go to exit college, I would always recommend them to go to an organization of that level of quality, because I think you end up learning so much through various experiences around how to tackle problems, how to tackle issues, whether you're working on a global team or a local team or different functions, or against different problems, against different brands. It's those kind of diversity of experiences that you get so quickly that allow you, when you kind of get dropped into a new situation, that allow you to make sense of it all and go, this is kind of like other problems that I've seen. um, I think there's an aspect of how to, like, when you work in a large organization, you can also understand how a business works, because it's almost personified on, there's a whole team of supply chain or quality or regulatory, and you start understanding how all these things work together. That if you get dropped immediately into a small organization, there might not exist one of those functions, and you might not realize that it's an important aspect of getting things done on a bigger scale, and you might ignore it for way too long. And so I think that multidisciplinary, kind of experience is really important to learn, so that you can kind of understand where you might have blind spots on if you were to go to a small organization.
When I think of J&J, I imagine that there's layers and layers and layers. It's part of the deal, right? Like in some ways it's good. In some ways it's good.
Sure.
You're well protected. But like as you think about your communication style, I mean, you're managing up, you're managing across, you're managing your team. What was your approach like for like leading teams across multiple levels of management?
Yeah, I mean, everybody's got their own style, I guess, right? And I remember there was a senior HR executive there who was trying to describe me one time, and she said, "You're seen kind of as an agitator." I was like, "Okay, I guess I see that as a good thing, but it might be other thing." And I think as you're working through multiple layers, I mean, everybody has their different approach on how to do that. I was one who usually in the room would say what everybody was thinking, but no one wanted to say. And I think it is one of the things that I think is important in terms of getting business done. And even with our team today, at Raw Sugar, I mean, our first thing on our values is no ego leadership. And like, there's an element of being able to, say when things, at different levels of the organization, don't seem right, and be able to speak out about it. And I think sometimes it's harder in a large organization, because I think it's, it takes some credibility over time to be able to do that. And I think as you're coming up the ranks, sometimes it's harder to have that courage to be able to speak up like that. But
I
yeah,
can totally see you, by the way, as a Philly guy, being like, "That is a compliment."
yeah, exactly, exactly. Yeah, I thought it was a compliment, but it was definitely a tag where I was like, I'm sure there's other people who don't see it the same way. But I think it's all comes from a place of wanting to do the right thing and wanting to move fast and move with intention. And I think in some cases you can get frustrated with that in a large organization if not everybody's moving at the same speed. I read this in that there's a book called CEO Principles. I forget the author and I was reading it as I was getting ready for this role, and there was a paragraph in there that was talking about large companies and small companies. And one of the paragraphs that really stuck with me was a quote that said, "In large organizations, there's so many smart people, so many intelligent people. The problem is they all think they're in charge." And that's usually what the challenge is that everybody's very smart. Everybody's looking at a problem from their own kind of functional or regional or P&L perspective. And one of the things that is liberating when you can go to a small organization is the clarity of decision making ends up being really clear, so you do move much faster.
I'm curious, as you've shifted into this role, it's co-founder business, right? It's Ronnie and Donda,
Yep.
Donda. So do you think, or did they give you any inkling on, hey, you're coming into it is a family and we want to be more of a sports team? Or was it already on the path of like, no, our people are aware that this is about performance? What was shared with you, or
Yeah, it
what
was
did you
more.
find
It
out?
was definitely more B. I mean, they are they're business people who've operated in retail and manufacturing for a long period of time, so they get the demands, the expectations from our customers and from consumers. So there are certainly people who have been on the journey that hold a special place in the heart of raw sugar because they were there from employee number 2, 3, 4 that are important for us to recognize and not lose sight of as the business grows. But they understand that it's we're here to win.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I mean, you guys are Raw Sugar's tiptoeing towards its decade anniversary. Curious
Mm.
to hear what the party is going to look like for it to
Yeah.
be 10 years old. But like you think back to before those first real launch days at Target, and that natural was like it may have been in the store, but it was in the
Right.
back of the store.
Yeah.
You knew it was better for you, but it was so you knew it was good for you, but it was so expensive. And now, I mean, as your daughters have grown up. I mean, I'm sure they've seen a complete shift and like, wait, this doesn't make any sense. This is better for you. It's a better product. How do we make this accessible to all? Is that sort of the idea here?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think they were ahead of their time in terms of making clean products, and it took a combination of Donda's kind of creative vision around products and Ronnie's expertise in business and supply chain and sourcing and knowing kind of that this could be done, and then in partnership with Target, who stands for affordable joy, and so there was this element of how to make something affordable and how to make it wonderful. And I think one of the problems with the real natural products that existed back then is they could be to the mainstream consumer a little bit kind of intimidating, a little bit too granola, if you will. And so what they did was make clean products, but also in the design, it was designed for display and designed for the mainstream person who was trying to do a little bit better. And the white bottle and the bamboo cap, it doesn't scream, hey, this is you pick this up in the small natural store in your town. This is more of a mainstream product for kind of the millennial parent, if you will. And I think they hit a sweet spot in terms of the design and the execution. And the business continues to kind of grow and grow because also the product performance is great. We're able to design the products from a quality standpoint that is really, really high level, and make some of the choices to put product before marketing, which I think is one of our mantras is great marketing gets somebody to buy product once, but a great product gets them coming back over and over again. So,
Yeah, in the spirit of courage, and I think this is more from what I read from like Donda. I mean, Target is basically the first one that says yes. It is a massive swing. It is a massive cut. It's not a small test, right? This is like go big or go home, and a swing for the fences. And I think about your style with rowing, about being consistent and being disciplined every day. They're almost like against or opposites of each other. But then I did read that packaging and labeling was super disciplined. And so where do you see is like the time to go big, and where do you see it's like stay disciplined and let's go small and be smart about how we grow?
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to listen to both sides of the brain. I mean, that's one of the things that I love working with our team is we have both sides, both the creative side that are. Um, I've learned this word recently, who are polychronic, meaning they don't show up to meetings on time, and then you have the other side of the team who is monochronic, who show up on time and expect everything to be done. And I think as long as you embrace those two groups, you have a big swing at the fence. You're allowed to have some of those creative ideas see the light of day, and then you have folks, me, the supply chain team, and everything behind them going like, all right, here's what the minimum order quantity is going to be. Here's what we're going to do the forecast. This is how we're going to, build our analytics behind it. But you don't let that drive, the big idea and the vision you want to have for the company. And so I think you have to find ways to make sure that both live in the, in the meeting room, in the boardroom, in the discussions, and give space for that.
Well, I like this Polly and Molly, we'll call them Polly and Molly, right? So, like,
Yeah.
how does Polly and Molly survive a pandemic, like in this hybrid workforce? Like,
Yeah.
is it when you say they're showing up late? Is it showing up to a Zoom late? Is everyone back in the office? What's your
Yeah.
strategy on all this?
Yeah, well, it's a good question. We had a debate this last week as we were kind of working on our longer term plan and got into this topic, and it kind of blew the meeting up. And I'm deciding we can't put that in the middle of like a strategic planning conversations, kind of world predictions. But we've hit, I think, a pretty good sweet spot. I spent some time with employees last week around how people are feeling about it. And we have a blend of both. We have our critical masses in LA. A lot of our teams out there will meet a couple days a week in the office, by function, and have those meetings. We're there as a total company once a quarter. And then frankly, we're out on the front lines a lot. We're with customers, we're with suppliers, we're at conferences. And when we do that, it's important for us to bring along those leaders that need training, education, leadership kind of exposure. You can do that in the hallways of a big company. Lots of times that does happen. In a smaller company, you're spread a little bit thinner to be able to do that. So what's important is to bring them along on those trips, those customer meetings, those interactions, for them to get the experience with leadership and have some quality time, whether it's waiting for a flight or getting ready for a meeting. So I think we kind of have this a multi-pronged approach to it that right now I think is working. Certainly with an LA base, we want to keep people not on the highways and productive and healthy, and so it's eliminating the commute 5 days a week, I think, is also something they really value.
I mean, we got to be careful when talking about pandemics for all obvious reasons, but it did feel like the hand wash part of your business
Yeah.
kind of got noticed, and that was sort of a gateway to the rest of your
Yep.
your brands, your categories. Is that an accurate statement?
Yeah. So in 2020, the hand wash took off because one, we had some really smart people doing some great things from supply. So we had supply during that time. And Target recognized us actually as their vendor of the year in the category. And so we were really proud of that factor. And it got a lot of brand awareness and the quality of our product in consumers' hands in 2020. When everything came back to earth in 2021 from a hand soap standpoint, the business actually grew in 2021. But it was because when they came back to the stores, they had a great experience with the hand soap, and they bought body wash and hair care and kids and men's, and so it definitely lit a spark that allowed the business to have a much stronger awareness. And so we're glad we were there for people when they needed product, and we're able to deliver. And it's nice to have them come back and reward us for good service and good quality products.
You're in so many different categories now. I
Mhm.
mean, it's not like you're in one aisle; you're cross aisle. And
Yeah,
how does that help you, or how does that hurt you? Maybe is a better way to say it, when you're like trying to like articulate the story.
sure.
Does the buyer get it? Do they get the full picture story all the time?
Yeah, well, not all the time. I mean, sometimes we have to spend some time educating on it. But if you take back to the very beginning of why brands existed, back in the late early 1900s, and why brands were created, is they ended up being a mark of trust that the quality of the product they were buying was at a certain level of expectations. And I think what's happened in the last decade or so is that within categories, there are certain brands that are standing for clean products that they know don't have things that are going to surprise them. And when you stand for that as a brand, you can go into categories where consumers feel like the need is not being met and meet that need. And that's why we've, I think, had a lot of success across multiple categories, because that's the way consumers see us. And we also do it as we come in not by taking the price points in the category and jacking them up 2 times at a very affordable price point. So I think that has worked. And and then we usually have kind of at any given retailer kind of a sponsor buyer who kind of sees the whole vision that we partner with, that can help us kind of navigate through different kind of retail challenges to make sure that we can present ourselves as one holistic brand.
Going back to the very beginning again on your J&J days, but I find it fascinating. You don't run into too many financial analysts that end up as global group
Sure.
brand directors.
Yeah.
Did you, I mean, maybe the simpler question is like, how did you go from, hey, focusing on the money? I mean, even today, you're in the business of delivering brand love. This is,
Sure. Yeah.
so talk to me about that shift and how you see it as a competitive advantage as well.
Yeah. I mean, I think when I sit down and I talk, especially kind of people my daughter's age and people who are starting out their careers, the one thing I really focus on with them is about being curious and curiosity and feeding that and being innately curious. And I think what ended up happening is when I was in finance and in different roles, when you started asking why you were doing something, why was this important, who does this go to, what, and you kind of were a little annoying with your 57 questions to people, you end up finding folks who are actually really excited to be able to sit down and explain the context of what you're working on to you. And as you start kind of getting more and more context, you start realizing where the where the business decisions are being made, and that curiosity ends up kind of building your knowledge and foundation. So I was in finance for a few years, and then saw that a lot of the decisions on brands and consumer goods were being made in brand marketing, and worked my way over there. And I just kept asking questions, and ended up feeding that curiosity. And I think that's what led down that path.
I mean, now it's just part of the timeline, but if you could go back to that, I mean,
Yeah.
that is a leap. It is a courageous leap.
Sure. Yeah.
Do you remember it being like, is this the right decision for me? Or did you just know and go?
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely a curiosity, because the last person in finance who went over to marketing ended up getting fired about 6 months later. So I got a lot of warnings going like, oh, well, you usually don't do this. It's a tougher thing. Most of the recruiting was out of kind of top MBA schools, and I didn't have an MBA, and so. But I knew like I wanted to do something kind of on a broader business standpoint. So it was either like do this and take a leap, or go back to business school, or doing something. I was pretty young, and there's a lot of other options over there. And in many cases, a lot of those leaps, I go back to mentors and sponsors and people in my life who were like, you really felt there for me. My first manager, or leader in marketing, who kind of sponsored me to come over. I think I talked to him last Friday. I mean, it's now 25 years later. That was a sponsor, and you felt supported by having somebody who really wanted you to be there, and it was there when you messed up. And I still remember bringing in the office and reading me the riot act when I screwed up a few times, but then let me go back and continue to kind of thrive in the organization. So no, I think it was I think some of those leaps early on in your career are really good to make, and they usually work out, if not for the specific role, but in terms of like building your confidence to be able to do those more.
I don't feel like this is as much of a problem for this next generation workforce. I think they're making leaps, like almost too many leaps personally, but that's just from my own perspective. All right, this is a Billy Collins special here, so here we go. Look, you've got 2 amazing daughters. What have you learned from being this is his language, hashtag girl dad? And I think the second part, typical 2-parter from Billy, when you did relocate down to Tampa, and you brought your family. Like, how'd you know it was time to like lay down roots in this new place?
Yeah. Um, Yeah, so I mean, the first one, I don't know that the list is really long about what I've learned from the girls on, how to lead. I think some of the best, things are stories to tell versus just, business jargon. I always go back to a moment in during the pandemic when we were trying to decide are we bringing people back in the office or not, and a huge debate. And as a leader, and I'm running an office in Florida. Um, and there's all kinds of different pressures, 2 days a week, 3 days a week we're going to do. And we're sitting around the table, and I, when they get older, I was able to share a lot of things that were on my mind with them, and they were very smart, smart women that could give me perspective. And my oldest daughter Julia, who's an environmental science and ecology major at Emory and very sustainably minded, um, goes to me, why don't you do what you do for climate change for the office? And I was like, what do you mean? She goes, say you'll come back in 2050. Because that's on, corporations make these long-term environmental commitments in 20 or 30 years. And, this one seems to be very urgent for getting people out of the office, but your climate change one doesn't seem to be as aggressive. And there, she was being kind of facetious about the whole thing, but I remember as a, just as a leader listening to it, going like, yeah, especially her generation, some of the commitments that have been made in the past relative to, climate change and sustainability are almost laughable to her generation. And so I think it's one of the things that was, I don't know, I think I always remember that story because I think, I will, whatever roles I'm in, I will kind of, probably never commit to something that is, 15 years out as a commitment to my organization because I think it ends up being kind of laughed off. But I mean, day to day, I mean, I'm learning from them, especially as it relates to how to market to a different generation of consumers. So it's been wonderful.
It's super tricky as a creative, right? Because it's like you have to worry about family focus groups. Like there's so many family focus groups, war like stories that like just get me a little nervous. Like, oh well, the CEO's wife liked this idea,
Sure,
so there you
sure.
go. But I find I'm doing it too with my kids. Like
Yeah,
they're the ones living in this fast paced world,
totally. Yeah,
and like how am I creating a better world for them? And undeniably, this next generation, what I love about them is it's a little cliche to say it, but they wear their values on their sleeves. They
yeah,
vote with their dollars. They're not going to wear or support something that's not in line with their value system. So it's
yeah,
very much real.
yeah, yeah. No, it's been they've been amazing partners on this whole journey. And moving down here, I mean, it was moving down to Florida was a little bit of a uh, I never would have, if you would have told the guy from Philly I was moving to Florida, I would have laughed at you. Like I never thought I would be down here. And I think when we purchased the company at J&J and I started commuting, I knew the commuting thing wasn't working for me and my family. We decided we were going to move. And and we thought it was, for a short period of time. I think probably the pandemic and everything kind of extended some of that, and we were kind of locked in place. And I think also, like a lot of people, over the course of that time, probably our values and our priorities in life changed over the course of that, and decided to, we've been here now 6 years, and decided to make this a bit of a home base. And we'll see where the world takes us next. But it's been a good journey so far.
Billy just assumed because there was a Wawa nearby is why you really moved down there.
Yeah, it was. I was very pleasantly surprised. The funny thing is with the Phillies in Clearwater, there's like a small little contagion of Philadelphia down here, from Wawa to a really good Eagles bar that I can go watch the Eagles at. That is not. It's not the highbrow Eagles fans either. It's like the good Eagles fans. There's usually some craziness going on there. So.
We call that home, I'm
Yeah,
sure, right? That's just home.
yeah.
So if you could go back and change, like 25 years of some pretty serious rooms, some seriously professional rooms, but if there was one decision that you would have changed of your career, what would that have been? If there's like one place that maybe like, oh, I should have done this versus that, or what's your even philosophy on like looking back and being like, huh, That would
Yeah.
have been interesting if I would have done that different.
Yeah. I mean, I think the one thing that you often get caught in that is, there's a lot of folks, I think, especially in the US, that are very resistant to pick up and move their families, move their young families away from family and friends and support network and stuff like that. And I was one of those for sure. Like, and you would say all the right things of, yeah, I'm open to it, and then the offer would come, and you would come up with some reason why it didn't work for you. And I think it's one of the best things you can do for your children. And it's one of the even today they would tell you that they're better people because they picked up and had to move and had to assimilate to a new school and get a different environment, the pros and cons of it and everything. And I think it's one of I look back and those opportunities were probably presented to me earlier when my children were younger. And I think having that courage to make some of those moves a bit earlier, I think, is one of the things that might have opened up some different doors. But I think also just make everybody a bit stronger and tighter as a family, because it definitely does happen. It's just you see it time and again that it's hard to get that perspective. I think when you're chasing around a 4 and a 2-year-old and saying, oh my gosh, I need all these people in my life to help me make things work, and it's working out. And I think that leap is one that is hard for people to see and make.
Well, I like the resilience that's built into families or your kids when you
Yeah.
do make a shift. And
Yeah.
like, I live in San Diego, California. I don't have to have the conversation with my wife. I know she's not interested in moving somewhere else.
Right. Yeah.
But I like that, like, barely any of my clients are here. Like, I'm always on a plane.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
most people would be like, "Oh, doesn't that bother you?" I'm like, "No, my kids are smart enough, even at 10 and 7, to know that, like, yes, it takes hard work to
Yeah.
live in a place like this. And if that means daddy has to be on a plane, thank
Sure.
goodness for FaceTime,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Then that at least there's a lesson in almost all of my decisions. The first layer now is like, how will the family sort of marinate in this? Will they get it?
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah.
yeah, it would be nice to have a couple clients in San Diego. That would be
Sure.
nice. But
Yeah.
like, but I'm sure you feel the same way being in
Yeah.
Florida. I mean, how often are you in California now?
Yeah, we're there at least every quarter plus a couple other times. But honestly, I see most of the leadership team, you know, be in Cincinnati day after tomorrow with folks and so we're traveling quite a bunch to meet with customers and everything. But yeah, I mean, I think this work from home thing plus travel, I think, is a fairly good balance as long as folks are willing to do it. It would have been harder, I think, on the family, at a different stage of life.
So 15 months in at Raw Sugar, let's say you come back 15 months from now,
Hmm.
what will you have, like, or will be you most proud of that you've sort of helped accelerate at the business?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that when you have a founder-based business, you have these founders who are have the passion and they start pulling things out, but they have the vision and they're doing everything right, and everything under the sun and working like crazy. And then as you go and you bring in a level of support and kind of professionalism at the top at different things, you usually bring in kind of the top executive team, which we have done, and we've gotten some great talent that is running marketing, supply chain, sales, finance, etc. And but where an organization really takes off is when the folks, you get a group of folks underneath them that are hungry and passionate to learn and drive the business, and they're empowered to do the work. And that's where we've really been building some really strong talent and bringing them in, because they're the ones who, the kind of organization I want to run is that they feel empowered to go get after it. They understand what the brand is about, what our goals are, and they can go out and get after it. And when they come back to leadership, it's more telling us about their wins and their challenges and what they need help on. And that's where I think in 15 months, having an organization that is filled with people who are passionate about what we're trying to do and can operate kind of independently, not everything being run up through a set of folks, I think is kind of the vision, and I think we'll really be winning then.
Look, that is brand love as far as I'm concerned. And I think one of the things that you wish more organizations got. It's like, P.S. What you're telling the outside world, you should probably operationalize on the inside. And so I'm curious how brand love, like, how have you taken that and where else have you seen it? And obviously, we just talked about inside the organization, you want to amplify it, but how is it landing in the outside world as well?
Yeah, I mean, I can give one example. One of the things is our kids line that I think from a brand love standpoint is, it was launched, great packaging, wonderful scents, and in an aisle that you can imagine with kids that there weren't a lot of clean products for kids, and so it was a lot of licensed product, and the formulas were not stuff that adults were using, which was kind of crazy that you would be, using sulfates or preservative systems and stuff like that on the kids that a lot of adults wouldn't use. And so we went in and we disrupted that, and we're, a lot of great success on it. But I think when you think about brand love, when you start to talk to, parents with kids, bath time is not just, washing in great sense, but it's definitely playtime as well, especially with those toddlers. And we recently launched a product that was slime, right? It's a slime that you can use as a body wash, right? Which parents, hate slime, but this is one that rinses off, right? It's not going to stick to the walls. It rinses off like a body wash. But when you think about like the brand ethos and the brand love that we have, we first make the slime, and we don't have any artificial colors in any of our products. So we get the sample of the slime, and it's clear, and it just looks like boogers, right? It's like this isn't fun. This just looks like a clear gel. Yeah, we got to make it green or pink or something like that. So it's our first colored product, but actually we use chlorophyll. So we use natural chlorophyll is the green that's in there versus any kind of artificial dyes. Which I think is pretty cool because you're kind of going and saying like, yeah, people come to our brand because they want to make sure it's free of, all the things that they're concerned about. And so, but we also were listening to the kids and saying like, we need to have something that's a little bit of fun factor. So it's a pretty cool story.
Instantly think of Ghostbusters, like you've taken
Exactly.
back.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is brand love, and it's doing what's right for the consumer for sure. All right, look, there's a lot of future Billy Collinses out there in the world, and so in the spirit of, I just think we have a lot of people that listen that they are curious people. They do want to advance in their careers. What advice, or like if you're gonna like take us home, a 1, 2, 3 on how they should go about? And you've already said stay curious. Like let's
Yeah.
be curious in what you take on. What other pieces of snippets of advice can you give out?
Yeah, I mean, someone said to me once, what I thought was great advice: take like the worst job at the best organization versus the best job at the worst organization. And I think there's some truth to it. Like, and if you are curious and you get into an amazing organization some way, somehow, even if it's not exactly in the wheelhouse of what, you want to do, you'll find your way. Like the cream rises to the top. And so that's where I think a lot of folks kind of, will sacrifice because they think they need a certain title or they need a certain, things like that. It's better you're joining an organization, hopefully for the long term, and, look for those great organizations and check them out. Like that's one of the things that as I go and I meet with kind of interns or folks, if people don't have like 15 questions for me and I have a meeting with them and they have like 2 or 3 questions, I'm like, all right, well, I'm done. And as I talk to my daughters, I'm like, you better just pepper this. I don't care if it's a CEO of a Fortune 15 company. Like you come in peppering with questions because that's what they're there for. They're there to like answer those questions. And I think those two, I think, are a key to success. And I think the last one is, as you're going through and you're starting to work on things, try to understand the why people are asking you to do things. And it's kind of around the curious, but what ends up happening, I think what allowed me to kind of early in my career kind of, get some great opportunities is, I often found myself saying, you asked me for A, but I thought about why you asked me for A, and I did A, but I also did B because if I was you, I'd want B, and here's B. And usually it was B was what they didn't brief me all that well. And you try to understand, I'm afraid of like, you get a crappy brief and you go like, I did the brief, but that's probably not what you want. You probably want B. And I think if you stop short of really trying to understand what people are trying to deliver, you're not going to be able to separate yourself out. You're just going to kind of be a cog in the machine doing what's being asked of you. And I think you need to find a way to, think beyond that and deliver kind of the extra.
Yeah, I always say to my team, like, never forget that our phone rang for a reason. Like, there is a
Sure.
problem that hasn't been solved.
Yeah, yeah,
Maybe that's not the right problem.
yeah.
There's a different problem that we should be looking at. All right, I lied. In the spirit of peppering leaders with
Sure, sure.
questions, I've got one more, and then
Yeah.
I'll let you roll. So, when you've done what you've done for so long, I mean, you have seen, you got a lot of at bats in a good way, right?
Mhm.
But I'm sure there's still fear. I'm sure there's still like, I won't go too cliche like what keeps you up at night, but fear and courage are kin. And how do you make sure that you unlearn, or where do you need to unlearn things that used to be truths?
Yeah.
And now you see them, you're like, okay, is this one of those moments I have to be wary of this? What's that process like for you?
I think there's emerging kind of threats that happen on businesses that, you know, weren't the threats that you had before. You used to have threats of customer issues or, people coming after you, competitors, etc. And, now you have threats of, somebody decides to go on TikTok and has 1 million viewers and, says something bad about you and it's taken as truth. Right. And so like, those are threats that initially, you'll go and check off oh my gosh, what's wrong with this generation being the first response. But actually you have to workshop that and go like, all right, how do you handle this now? How do you engage in different platforms? So I think there's, I think kind of understanding what those are, I think is probably one of the bigger things that you're, keeping up in mind. But I think that's where, like, as a leader, you have to put in the work of like reading and understanding and sharing. There's a lot of members of my team. We share like books and articles and different things where we're just trying to kind of understand how to best to react to different things that are going to be changing with the business. And so I think it's more so of trying to keep up on what's changing, and also I think in that kind of staying true to your values. Like if you take in the last what is it, the last 2 weeks when Threads launched or whatever, and so Threads launches and we decide we go out and we get our handle, and you're talking with the team and you're going, guys, you're already managing like 5 social channels to begin with, a really small team. Like your head's going to explode if you kind of try to add this onto the work pile. Like let's watch and learn and see how this plays out. And, we're happy to be a fast follower. But it's important that we learn about it and understand. So you can't take the learning off the table, but you can take some of the reactionary actions off the table. So I think as I've gotten more perspective, you end up spending a lot more time educating yourself.
Well, Mike, thanks for your time, man. Continue to enjoy the ride over there. I look forward. When is your last daughter still in high school?
Yeah, so she just graduated, so she's
Oh, we look forward to you being a California resident soon then, right? I mean, any day now.
Never know. She's going to Boston, so everything's tied kind of to the East Coast, but
Everyone's
we'll
got
see.
it. I wish you and the business well. I feel differently about the Eagles, which but
Sorry.
Thanks for coming on, man. Good to see you.
You bet. Take care.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Courageous Podcast. If you enjoy the show, don't forget to rate and review us on Apple Podcasts so more people can find us. See you again next week.